I think that one of the things that we're not doing enough in organizations is helping understand employees, what's your purpose? What's your meaning? Why do you come to work every day?
This is the vinJones Podcast, Secrets of the Engaged Employee, with Kevin Jones of vinJones.com.
Today I am excited to interview Luis Suarez, who is one of my idols, I must say. Luis is an independent advisor for social business and digital transformation. And you speak and you write. You mentioned that you are finishing up or done with a book. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's a co-authored book. So it's I think it's about 6 or 7 of us that we basically got together and we realized that we were talking about the same things that we're really passionate about in terms of how the nature of work is changing around social networks and digital technologies, and a notion of, or the concept of you probably well know from John Hasman, called hierarchy.
Yeah.
So a bunch of us got together and we wrote a book. I wrote one of the chapters about the book, and the book is finished. It's about to be published online and made available online for everyone. And it will help, I think it will help a lot of organizations and a lot of practitioners understand the dynamics of how social networks work in a business context, beyond the personal impact, beyond the societal impact, in terms of how do I make sense of what's happening around networks in our day-to-day work life, right? And I tell you, when I read the entire book, when we were finished it and we had the final version, I went like, oh my God, this is just too good. I was like, okay.
Awesome. Great.
So stay tuned. Stay tuned. It will be coming through. I mean, it will be on my streams and a bunch of the people that co-authored it and everything else. And it was fun because, we're already thinking about the second book and the third and the fourth.
Wow.
So we'll see where it goes.
That's great.
We'll see.
What's the title?
It's called Hierarchy: Sketches of the New Way of Work.
Great.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. The title may change a little bit, but it is essentially hierarchy and sketches of the new work.
Okay.
Right?
And when does it come
And
out?
it basically talks. It's already sorted out. We're just finishing off the last touches.
Okay.
And we already have got the final copies distributed, in terms of each of us having one and reading it through and thinking, is this the final product that we want to put together? It will be published as an ebook versus the hard copy, right? We thought we also move along with the times,
Yeah, very good.
And like I said, probably in the next 2-3 weeks, we will be officially announcing it. Right?
Great.
And we will go with it.
That's exciting. And so your chapter that you wrote, what is that? Or can you give us a brief overview of what that may be? Peek into the mind of Luis?
Yeah, but essentially what we're trying to do in the book, the purpose of the book was basically help folks understand what hierarchy is and how it operates, right? How it changes the world of traditional top-down, hierarchical, command and control mindset and behavior in terms of how people working in organizations and everything else. And we try to describe how different business areas are impacted by those networks and how hierarchy kicks in as an organizing principle, right? Versus a methodology or whatever else. So the chapter that I put together was about an opportunity for practitioners to already identify whether they are operating as a hierarchy or not. And if they are not, to share 3 simple steps, and I won't share them now. This is the bit that you will have to read, right? 3 simple steps to get you going within the first week, 2 weeks, so that it doesn't sound as daunting as it could be. And it covers the practical perspective of how it is all about a personal transformation journey, right? And this is one of the things that I'm really passionate about, because we keep hearing about how organizations need to change and how they need to come along with the times and how they need to understand the new dynamics. And what I basically mentioned on that book is that organizations can't change. People can, right? So the chapter itself is how do we help provide the right conditions for people to change themselves and how they work and how they see the world of work, right? And then I share those 3 tips of how people can get started if they haven't done it so far, which I think is what people will be able to say, okay, so what do I get from this, right? So I'll basically on that book chapter, I provide the basic skeleton of how they can make it work.
You just said something there that piqued my interest because I have a lot of the same thoughts and ideas around this, and I don't want you to give away the chapter of your book, but just kind of a general idea of this. You said organizations don't change, people do. And it's interesting that I'll say we being general public, I think, those in business, lump those two together to say, I mean, they're the same, basically the same thing, but they really aren't. Talk about, if you could, talk about the difference between, and what you mean between, we can't change the organization, but we can change people.
Well, we cannot change people, right? We cannot change, organizations won't change, people will change, but we cannot change people. I cannot change people. I can provide the conditions for you then as an individual to decide if you want to change or not. It's an important thing because, you know, everyone talks about empowerment. If you look into the tech vendors, if you look into the space out there around social business, everyone talks about empowering your employees.
Sure.
I'm sorry, you cannot empower people in a world of networks. And the reason for that is because empowerment means that you still retain the power, whatever the power is. Right? If anything, what you do is you enable people. You enable them to do something about how they work, but because you provide the conditions for it. So the conditions are along the lines of having the technology in place, about having the inspiration to provoke a new set of behaviors, a new mindset that comes along with behaving in different networks around, you know, openness, about collaboration, open collaboration, about knowledge sharing, about, you know, empathy, about caring for one another, about stopping competing with one another and start collaborating and helping one another. So you basically acquire a new set of behaviors that are provided by those conditions in terms of how people change, right? Now, the thing about why organizations cannot change is because organizations are an artificial construct. They're not human, right? And that's what I feel is missing from all of the talk that is going on about how people are trying to change organizations. We cannot, right? And in fact, most of the decision making that takes place is done by humans, by people, right? So the old mantra about people do business with people has never been more true than now, right? And people will tell you, okay, but that means that we have always been a social business. And I would say, yes, we have. It's just that we have been neglecting and ignoring that humanizing aspect of building relationships that work over the course of years, if not decades. And what has happened as a cause of that is that we have managed to disengage employees tremendously by not treating them like people, by treating them like resources, human resources, by treating them like assets. So your company's biggest asset is the people. Excuse me, people are not assets. They're not.
Very good. Yes.
They're human beings, right?
Yes.
And what we're trying, so the work that I'm interested in is how do we help rehumanize organizations, not from the organization point of view, but from the people point of view, right? I mean, if you go into it, and I think that you were already there back in the day when we had something called knowledge management, right? In the mid-90s, the early 90s, mid-90s. If you look into the original definitions of knowledge management, it was all based on a three-corner pyramid, right? So on one corner was process, on another corner was technology, and another corner was people. And over the course of those 25 years, and yes, it's been 25 years already, there was a lot of focus on process, an extreme focus on obsession, and perhaps even fetish with technology, and the people equation was completely ignored, right? Then fast forward to 2004, 2005, when digital tools, social tools are starting to make a splash inside of the business world. And I keep telling people, you know, this is not something that we just put together like 2 or 3 years ago. If I look into the first instances of blogs and wikis, we had to go back to 1994.
Right.
It's 21 years already that we have been having these digital tools. It's just a business that started paying attention to it because we, internet users, right, or internet practitioners or whatever you want to call it, we started playing with those tools back then, right? But the interesting thing is that those digital tools, those social tools, have helped us move forward and bring the people aspect on that knowledge management notion back into the game, right? So when people tell me, oh yeah, you know, but content is still is king, I say, no, it's not, because without the people, you don't have any content.
Right.
It's as simple as that. You can have the best processes, you can have the best technology, but if you don't have the people and if you don't have the right type of people for your business, you've got nothing. No matter how good your processes are, no matter how technology or how good technology is. And what happens is that obviously plenty of the principles for knowledge management that then morphed into social business, they're one and the same with a different moniker, right? And the thing that is different from like 25 years to now is that technology has gotten easier. Everyone can blog, everyone can tweet, everyone can understand the dynamics of how you interact online. The issue is, why aren't people doing it? That's what fascinates me. What's stopping people from doing it? And that's when we talk about culture, that's when we talk about behavior, that's when we talk about mindset. And it's not necessarily how you want to change people. You want to help, or at least the way I see my role as an advisor is, I want to help people understand how, if they want to see change in the organization, it's a change that needs to happen within themselves first and foremost. And if it doesn't happen within themselves, it won't happen at all. The only thing that you may be doing is, excitement of 1 or 2 years of trying something new, the new shiny object, but after the year and a half, you would see that it drops dead because that early community of early adopters basically has moved into the next shiny object, right? And that's what really motivates me in terms of moving forward is how do we help people understand that they may need to start their own personal transformation journeys, and how technology, if anything, is an enabler more than the end in itself, right? And obviously it puts together a number of different challenges and obstacles, and people say, yeah, but this is a lot harder than it looks. And I say, well, I wanted it to be harder. If we didn't have any challenges at all, we would get bored on day one. And then what? There's no learning. If you don't get challenged, there's no learning. That's what I keep telling people about. And if you get challenged and you learn and you do something better as a result of it, great. But if you don't, still is a learning experience, right? Where we try to embrace failure. And frankly, in a corporate environment, we haven't done enough about embracing failure.
I agree.
And I think that one of the issues that is happening with it is that it's all down to the fear factor, right? People are scared about doing something out of the box, about, saying the wrong thing, about provoking the wrong conversation, about insulting someone else, about not drinking the Kool-Aid in front of their colleagues. And I thought, like, you know what? I think it's all about how willing are we to challenge the status quo of how certain things have been operating, right? And then help people understand that once you provoke the conditions for that challenging of the status quo, you realize that that's when they start this awakening phase. I mean, I remember when I put together this blog post, maybe like 6-7 years ago, about Awakening 2.0, where people needed to go through that awakening phase. And that's exactly where I think we are now at the moment. We're going, especially inside of organizations, we're going through that awakening phase where we actually finally helping people understand, oh my God, I need to wake up. I need to wake up because whatever it is going to slang me left and right if I don't pay attention to it, right? And that's essentially what I think is the main challenge that organizations have got now, is how do we provide the conditions, not for organizations to change, but for people to change themselves, to feel self-empowered and enabled to change how they work, right?
Now, with processes that businesses have, with the rules and different procedures that they have, you might say that the organization, in a way, dictates where they will go. And so, when you talk about kind of really what you're talking about is reinventing the way we work, right? And so, if you want someone to change and really change the way they work and change the way they think about work, but we have all these rules and guidelines and structure around one way, then you're asking them to awaken and try to change the status quo. How does someone do that effectively without, I don't want to say, alienating themselves in a way?
Well, I don't think that it needs to reach the point of alienating themselves. I mean, look. I'm going to pick up on the example of business processes, right? I know that everyone will tell you that they're critical, they're important, they are very relevant to keep the business alive. But I don't know a single employee from any organization that does 8, 10, 12 hours of business processes every day, non-stop. I don't know anyone. Business processes are a minimal part of how work gets done, right? The thing is that a large chunk of everything else that happens around the business process, which is communication, collaboration, knowledge sharing, finding experts, whatever else that you need to do as part of your business practices, your rituals and everything else, they don't have much to do with processes themselves. I mean, the way I explain it is, why do you think that people consider email being so business critical? Because it's an excellent exception handler of business processes. Business processes were created for humans to break them. And how do we break them? Through email use or abuse, right? In this case.
Sure.
So what's happening then is that we always get around those business processes by hacking the business processes. So what I'm asking people is, in order to challenge the status quo without alienating yourself, why don't you hack yourself? Why don't you hack your own behaviors, your own mindset? Why don't you start saying, stop. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? There's not enough, why are we doing something, right? It's more like we take this inertia, we conform with how things have been running because we feel that that's the best way that things have been run. I think that what I'm missing tremendously from organizations and people working inside organizations is that there's not enough critical thinking taking place. And we know it, complainers, haters and trolls, they will do that because that's the only thing that they know what to do. But what about the constructive feedback, the critical thinking that happens about people who identify a business process that is not working, people who identify a new business opportunity but they didn't have a voice to air it out, right? So when I talk to business leaders and executives, they say, but I don't want people to complain and say all of these nasty things about how things are running in the company.
Right.
And I always, pause there for a minute to help them realize about what they just said. And then go back and I say one single sentence that, always gets them to think. And I say, have you ever thought that those who complain about things not working are probably the only ones left who care about your business? Because those who don't care, they just keep quiet, they just do their stupid thing, they get paid at the end of the month, and then they go home and they do their own thing. They don't say a word. Those are the employees that you're basically getting anything because they're already at the level of disengagement. And believe me, the margin between disengagement and active disengagement, so those disengaged that actually work actively on getting everyone else disengaged, is what drives me crazy because they're trying to get everyone else to behave like them. And I thought, come on, stop that. So I have got to work, I have got a job to do, right? So what I tell them is, what you want to try to do is you want to try to provide an environment where people feel safe to come forward and challenge the way you work and challenge the processes that you have at work and, figure out new business opportunities, share openly new ideas, no matter how stupid that idea may well be. Who can tell you that may be the next big thing for your business? Mm-hmm. Goodness, we see that all the time with different startups, right? So I think that what needs to happen in terms of not alienating employees, of being brave enough, is to help understand that, there needs to be a lot of critical thinking happening, right? A lot of, constructive feedback, being able to and be willing to listen to what people have got to say, right? And that obviously means that your leadership role is different because you transform yourself from a manager, therefore you're always at the front telling everyone what to do, and eventually you become a leader where you actually inspire people to take and make their own decisions based on the conditions that you provide, right? And I think that there's not enough of that. There's still this notion that, rather we drink the Kool-Aid or we're in trouble. And what I keep telling people about is that, if we don't sort of apply that critical thinking, we won't be able to evolve further. I use one very good example. There are two initiatives out there. One of them called, Corporate Rebels and Rebels at Work. With Carmen Medina and Peter Vanden and Lois Kelly. And that's exactly the spirit that we need inside of corporations. It's a bit of revelry, not necessarily from the point of view of anarchy, because that's what most people think, but it's in terms of, let me help you identify what's not working. And at the same time that I'm doing that, I'm going to proactively offer potential solutions, right? There's not enough about doing that. And I think that what is provoking in most employees is that people do no longer feel accountable and responsible for the work they do. And that's very worrying, because that means that they're waiting for someone else to make their decisions. And that's the worst thing that you can have, especially if that someone else who makes that decision is your manager. Because at that point, it will no longer scale. There's just so much complexity going on where we're no longer working one project with one team all collocated in one single, cubicle space or open space or whatever else. We have got multiple projects, multiple teams, different time zones, different geographies, and different clients that we need to serve. And that complexity where you need to have one person making decisions is no longer scalable. What you want to have is you want to help educate everyone else around you to make decisions for themselves, so that those really tough decisions that we will always have them, those will be the ones that will be dedicated for leaders to make a decision on, because they are the more complex problems. And they will have enough experience, they will have enough networks and contacts there that they can go and tap to, instead of having to go through an approval process of, can we give that guy $200 to buy a battery? Excuse me? No.
Right.
We need to get better at that. We need to help inspire a new way of working where people are capable of making better decisions right on the spot, based on the information that they have available and the networks that they have available that they have been cultivating and nurturing, right? So that's, to me, that is about that personal accountability and responsibility, and that basically, for me, helps introduce topics like co-creation, co-create products with your clients and with your employees. It's about innovation in terms of finding new sources of innovation that before they were just basically dormant, right? And help generate that understanding that organizations, or especially employees in organizations, do not need to compete with one another. They need to cooperate. They need to collaborate. Why? Because they're all in the same boat. It's the same business. Right. Why should I compete with someone to what? Get a better bonus? A bigger bonus? No, that's silly. Come on. You basically have, we have to get that mentality again, that we need to cooperate, we need to collaborate to serve our customers better. That's what we care for. I mean, that's what we're there for. We're there for our customers. That's one of the things that, when I work with clients and they tell me that they want to basically have an internal digital transformation strategy where they can improve internal things, processes or whatever else, I keep telling them and reminding them, but you do know that the final frontier is for you to be where your customers are, right? Because if you're not thinking that, you won't reach that, because your customers cannot reach behind the firewall, right? And then there's this dramatic pause and silence where you go, of course. They say of course. So forget that. I keep reminding you time and time again, right? I mean, we keep forgetting that into the whole equation. And people will tell me, okay, but does that mean that I need to have a digital footprint outside of the firewall and then invest all of my effort in there? And I say, not really. I mean, even simple, back in the day, blogged about, yes, you can be 2.0 on the outside, but if you're not on the inside, you will struggle. And I think that that's a natural evolution of, first, you help prepare the conditions inside, where people have that safe environment, where people can play, and if they feel nothing happens, they don't get exposed, they don't get, no one will nag on them. And then once they're comfortable inside, that's when you encourage them to move outside. And that outside is being where your customers are, where your business partners are, where your competitors are, and that's where the whole conversation happens about how really we are transforming the nature of work.
Absolutely. You mentioned personal accountability and responsibility. And I guess this is kind of an aside, but what I found, I at one point in my career started thinking about personal accountability and responsibility in-depthly. And we use those terms interchangeably, but accountability and responsibility are actually very different. And when I started realizing what the difference was, it changed my whole mindset on how to manage and lead, and the path forward from taking us from where we are to where we want to get to, and how that plays. So that's fascinating to me, because when you brought that up, that's the first thing that I thought of. Now, everything that you said in there, I think we could have taken just about every sentence and gone off on that, because what you said, I mean, You're saying brilliant thing after brilliant thing. And I thought, oh, can we write a chapter of a book just on that right there? Add that right there.
So, I know what you mean. And then obviously, because you were mentioning, I agree 100% with you that accountability is not the same thing as responsibility. And I don't see it as and or. I see it more as like an and.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Because to me, both of them combined, they introduce a concept that I know that when I say it, everyone is going to go like, yeah, right, of course, But then we're not doing enough, which is that one of ownership. Right?
Yes.
We have the issue that plenty of employees don't feel like they own their work. They don't own the share of the company that they're part for. They don't own how they actually interact and converse, not just with their peers, but also with their clients and their business partners. And I think that we need to help people understand how, if we want to change the nature of work, and not necessarily tomorrow, but we can actually start that today, is understanding that we have to get a stronger sense of owning what we do, right? Of owning the not necessarily owning the conversation, because that sends the wrong message, but have that a strong sense of ownership. Because if we don't have that strong sense of ownership, employees will eventually start the disengagement process. They will go and say, why would I care? I mean, after all, the way I describe it is also how I make the transition from being a salaried employee into an independent advisor. Right? I was working for IBM for 17 years. I had some wonderful times in there. I learned tones. It allowed me to do things that I would never imagine in my life. Yes, there were ups and downs. There were ups and downs like every corporate life and everything else.
Sure.
But one thing that I learned was how people conform with certain inertia, where if they don't have that kind of strong sense of ownership, they would just let themselves go. And say, by the end of the month, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I will work, I still get my paycheck. That to me tells me that there's no sense of ownership in there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Whereas if you are working as an independent, as a freelancer, as an example of an analogy, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. It's how we change the mindset, right? As an independent, your mindset is, I need to work my ass off. And even though I may work really, really hard, at the end of the month, I still don't have the guarantee that I will have a paycheck, right? Which makes me then take even more ownership of what I do, because I want to do things right. Because at the end of the day, I want to generate that opportunity to be able to pay my bills. And the way I do it is where I try to then look for meaningful work. I think that one of the things that we're not doing enough in organizations is helping understand employees, what's your purpose? What's your meaning? Why do you come to work every day? And when people tell me, well, I get paid, I said, like, no, please give me another answer.
Right.
I know that answer already. Give me something different. Give me something like, what makes you get up to come to work? And then what people would say to me, and obviously they would tell me, okay, I'm going to challenge you, mister. So what gets you to, get up every day and do work? Now as an independent and before when you were at IBM. And I always had the same answer. I'm not a technical guy. I didn't study computer science or whatever else. I'm an English teacher, right? So to me, it was always the people that I work with. They were the ones who get me up to work. Why? Because I was working with some of the most amazing people in the world. Lots of smarts, lots of incredible experiences and knowledge. And being able to tap into that with a single message, like a tweet or a status update or a file shared or whatever else, I felt privileged. I felt privileged that I had the opportunity to build networks around me that had all of the knowledge that I didn't. And I get telling people, that's why I get up every day. Why? Because every day I know I will learn something new. And I'm no longer 18 years old, as you can see from my gray hair, right? But being a bit of middle-aged is something that I really treasure in terms of how I keep growing as a human being. How I rehumanize myself based in terms of how I connect with networks, how I work with people, and how I get to know what people are good at so that I can make use of that whenever I need to bring it up, right? So when people tell me, so how do I make use of my network? No, so you don't make use of your networks, they make use of you, right?
Sure.
And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, they're the ones who know you. They're the ones who need to establish what visibility you have, what skills you have, and how you demonstrate your thought leadership. And if you're not capable of giving, it's going to be very difficult for you to take. I can tell you that, right? So many times I had a situation where people would tell me, I'm moving on into my next adventure, whatever that will be, and they say, well, I want to build a network that can help me on day one. I say, like, no, it's not going to help you on day one, because it takes time for people to get to know you. So if you're thinking about moving to your next adventure, you need to start way before that time, right? So that when the time is ready, you will have that support that you would need based on what you have contributed, exactly, because of what you have contributed back into the game, right? And that's what I keep telling people about. That was my motivation to come to work. That still is my motivation to come to work as an independent. It's the opportunity that every time I get up and I get into whatever the device in front of me, where my networks are, I get to learn something new, right? Whatever it is in terms of, social business, digital transformation, learning, knowledge management, collaboration. And there's not a single day that goes by where I don't learn something new. And that's really, really important. Why? Because it helps me grow as a person, right? There's nothing better than that.
Great. So in I guess, wrap up, you have so many things that we can change, so many things that we can do to improve the way we work and take, create that accountability and really focus on a purpose. If you were to leave us with one challenge, what would that be? Out of everything that you said, what can we focus on to take that first step to really have an impact on not only our work life, but our personal life as well?
I think I already mentioned it, but I think it's worth remembering again. Okay. Is hack yourself. Start hacking yourself, right? So what do I mean with that? So make the effort, and this is very important, make the effort to set up some time in your ever busy schedules, where we all know that we're very busy, right? And then, it's crazy enough on its own. But make the effort to set some time where it's just you and your thoughts, and ask you this question. How can I change the way I work? What are the things that I'm doing? What are my rituals? What is the first thing that I do in the morning? What is the first thing that I do after lunch? What is the first thing that I do in my meetings? What is the first thing that I do in my deliverables, right? And try to get and find out how you really work, how you do things, and write it down on paper. We visualize things better on paper, right? And if you're good at drawing on the iPad, go ahead and do it, by all means. But do it on paper and start writing down the things that you do. And preferably, you would do things that you really like doing and things that you really don't like doing, right? And once you've got the things that you really like doing, leave them apart for a little bit. Go into the ones that you don't like doing and challenge yourself as to why you keep doing them. Why are you still doing them? What is it that drives you to do them? The moment that you find a crack on that wall, start scratching and start saying, I'm not going to continue doing this, and instead I'm going to start doing something else, right? That provides me that ability to, provide more value, to become more accountable, to become more responsible for what I do and everything else, right? Well, once you identify one of those behaviors, give it a try. Try for a week, for 2 weeks, and see what that will feel like, right? In terms of how you're changing and how you're hacking your own behaviors, right? There's a great chance that once you try one, and you see a potential benefit of what will happen with you in terms of, productivity that you do and everything else, one of the things that will happen is that you will start realizing how your brain will want to have another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And before you realize it, you're building an entire new set of behaviors and rituals that will help you transform the way you work. And that's when you know that you're starting your own personal transformation journey, where you yourself are redefining work versus someone else redefining it for you. That's what it's all about.
That's powerful. Very good.
I know.
Wow.
I know. It's difficult. It's a challenge. But hey, you asked me for a challenge. No, there you got a challenge.
As you were saying that, I didn't ever put it into that light. But that's how I started my journey in changing the way I work. I had never thought of it that way, but that's exactly what happened. And I'm glad you put that kind of construct around it so that I can even challenge other people to do exactly what you challenged, because that is how I changed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you see the conversation that we had at the beginning, where I told you I cannot change you, but you can change yourself.
Yeah.
You just did it. You just confirmed it, and that's how you started your own transformation journey back in the day, and how you did it, right? So, like I said, I can't change people. I can only provide the conditions for you to go through that awakening phase of saying, like, my God, I can change the way I work.
Yeah. Bingo. Perfect way to wrap it up. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's I'm getting goosebumps.
I hope everyone is as well, because the things you provided here have just been fabulous. I've loved it.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
Why spend 10 hours a day doing work you only tolerate? The more engaged your team is, the more productive they will be. These are the secrets to helping them love their work. Learn how to love your work and create an engaged workplace. Visit vinJones.com.